Hello, everyone. Corinne here once more today, again with Natalie Goni. Hey, Natalie.
Hello, good evening.
Natalie's calling in from Hong Kong. I'm here in Dubai. And today we want to speak to you about, we're going to dissect a little bit the barrier or what are the barriers to intimacy. Yeah, being intimate with one another. And really looking at that also like beyond the physical, beyond the erotic and sexual as such. So we actually thought we're going to start off with an intimacy or a connection, well, both connection, intimacy practice, which Natalie knows, and she's going to guide me through it, or we're going to do it together here right now. And of course it can't be physical because we're literally, I think, thousands of kilometers apart from each other. So yeah, let's just begin with that.
Yeah, and this is a really simple practice from a broader body of work called authentic relating, and it relates into the notion of intimacy that we've trained in with Michaela Boehm around feeling what's there to be felt. And so this practice is so simple. It's sharing with a partner, starting with the sentence, being here with you, I notice. The partner listens and then responds with, hearing this, I noticed. Da, 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 da. So it's just so simple, but it's a prompt which just allows us to communicate in a way that shares what's really being felt or what's present. So I'll start. And I haven't thought about this at all, and that's the whole point of intimacy, right? It's letting go of it's being real, it's being vulnerable, it's being with what's present. So being here with you, I notice a slight tension in my chest and in my belly, like an anticipatory feeling. I notice the kind of light changing here in Hong Kong. It's like it's starting, the sun is starting to set. I'm noticing like the bubble of excitement that we both have when we are kind of in our creative conversations and we're coming together to talk about something, and then the kind of feeling of excitement and tension that it's going to be put out into the public world and then seen by other people. So yeah, noticing that almost like that push pull of the depth of connection with us and what we're going to talk about, and then the fact that it's going to be out for other people to listen to as well. And I'm noticing your presence, your breath, and the way that your body is moving with your breath, and your depth of listening. Yeah. So
Yes,
you so you might respond with, hearing this, I notice.
hearing this, I notice a lot of resonance and like, yeah, I feel very similar in some ways. And with that comes an automatic, a sameness, a feeling connected to you. I could feel a bit of a charge in my belly when you actually said, yeah, of course, this whole thing is being recorded and it goes out there. And it's a bit like, that is actually, feels even more intimate than just having a conversation to do a practice life like this. Mm, but I also feel, so yeah, there's some vulnerability around that. Um, and at the same time, joy um, to do this with you. And a warmth, kind of like a warmth and a love in my heart for conversations that you and I are having, like a lot, of course, not recorded, like off site, right, in our friendship.
Mm.
And yeah, a gratitude almost like in my heart to to have you in my life, to have conversations with like that, to share this level of both emotional and also intellectual intimacy, the bouncing back of idea. Yeah, and I sense that having heard that, but now also just having spoken a bit, is a sense of relaxation.
Mm.
Like an arriving by just giving voice to these things that just bubble up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Hello.
Hello. And hello, everyone else.
Imaginary ears.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
I think what you shared there is what we both shared is quite a nice segue into barriers to intimacy. Um, and and when we say intimacy, we mean um, in this context and conversation today, beyond the physical. So intellectual intimacy, emotional intimacy, creative intimacy. Have I, what else
and
comes to mind?
physical too, of course, right? It's included
Yes.
in all that.
Yeah, and I think that whether we are in the same room together or not, that we can acknowledge the physicality of each other, noticing breath, noticing someone's tension and how they're holding themselves, and whether you acknowledge that or not, we can still notice it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think some of the barriers are tension and
Caused by
stress.
stress, yeah.
Hmm. And tension that is not not felt, not released, not metabolized. Because when we have tension in the body, it can be like it can be a closing, right? It can be um, a tightness. What else came up there? A vulnerability, of course, and an awareness of like who's listening, or what do people think of me? What will people think of me? What are you thinking? Are you okay here? Are you comfortable? You happy to be with me? Um, what else did we share? Um, yeah, what else
Yeah.
comes to mind?
Yeah, stress also has a tendency to kind of close us more in the heart and maybe in the lower part, and we just kind of then function up here,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
Or let's say, if we bring it into the practical, if you have a day from, you worked from 9 till 6, you had a lot happening at work, maybe you have a stressful drive home, you come home and you haven't had any way to release that stress yet. And then in that moment, if you're come home to a partner or your children, you're just not available, because
mm,
still you're not available because you're just still caught up with either the adrenaline, the cortisol, whatever, and you're much, and that then is a barrier to come home and let's say sit down at the dinner table and immediately go into a more intimate conversation with the people or around you that maybe are craving that, you know,
Mm,
and you're just not there. Yeah. And so that is I think that's a barrier a lot of people know from their own lives, for example,
mm,
caused by, that cup. We often, our teacher Miguel often talks about that cup. You have a cup, and if your stress level is the cup is filled with drops of stress or liquid of stress all the way, just not like if something comes in, either it's going to trigger you or you want to go away, but you're certainly not in a place then to
mm,
connect deeply or listen, which also includes listening, right, to someone else,
mm,
paying attention, things like that. So yeah, having too much stress, not able, knowing how to release stress, maybe, um, or that is a barrier. We know that. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. Um, I had something I was going to say there, and I've forgotten now. Um, one of the things I'm aware of, living alone, because I was just reflecting on what you were saying about, um, coming home to a noisy household or kids and partners, and I think there are some people who need more time alone and don't necessarily get that. And I think that can be a barrier to intimacy because there is so much overload in terms of demands and needs and communication, and perhaps not enough depth of communication. And then for some people I know that feel too alone, and almost that can sometimes add to a closeness and a withdrawal, and so yeah, there can be lots of different contextual differences to people's
Yeah.
lives and their own barriers to intimacy. And a part of our work and our practice is about bringing awareness to that, feeling what is there to be felt.
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, and right with the loneliness, maybe also sometimes that loneliness can create anxiety, right? And
Hmm.
anxiety is also can also prevent becoming more intimate with others.
Mm,
We're quite absorbed with our own heart, but also not quite coping with it maybe, and then go in attention. But yes, and then there's practices, right? Well, okay. So let's say someone has quite a stressful life, which I mean, probably the majority of people with the way we live have these days, right? So to remedy that is having practices in place that allow you to release tension and stress, to make sure that this cup stress liquid comes down a bit in your cup, right? So that you start maybe either with an empty cup in the morning or at least a half full cup, yeah? But you're not constantly running on high
mm,
cortisol, adrenaline. So that's one way. And nonlinear movement that we both practice and teach is obviously an excellent way. We know that. But it's also, as you earlier maybe said, and that's obviously time alone. Doing nonlinear is time alone, but it can be going for your ritual, regular walk with your dog, for example, in the evening.
mhm,
That's a way to release stress. I mean, there's so many different ways how we can release stress. I guess it's important that people find whatever works for them and plan it into their lives. Make it really a routine to have these things in place so they can release stress. And
mm,
then the other thing we talked about is designing a life where there is just less stress, going more intentionally maybe around how you plan out your week. So there is less stress.
Mm.
causes you less stress. Yeah. Or
Mhm.
building more capacity.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that's coming up for me is I might be going a bit off piste here, but I listened to one of my favorite podcasts, this Jungian Life, which is three Jungian analysts talking about um, his concepts and in everyday life, and they talked about one around energy and low energy and how we can sometimes have, or some people have, more low energy in our lives. And Carl Jung refers to it as libido, and libido not just from a sexual energy perspective, but from an energy for life,
Mm.
and the importance of fantasy and having fantasies, and not, I don't mean sexual fantasies, but fantasizing and imagining things that you want to do that bring you joy, that and one of the examples they use in the podcast is one of the hosts was talking about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and she doesn't think she'll ever do it, but it's just something that came into her mind as she started kind of fantasizing about it and Googling it. Um and I think that we forget some of these things in our busy, modern, heavy, everyday lives, that we, and this can also become a barrier to intimacy, I think, is that the lack of libido sometimes we can have for life, because we're not bringing in imagination. We're kind of being overloaded with collective images and news from what's happening in the world. And um, I think that contributes to this notion of designing a life
Mm.
that allows us to fantasize, that allows us to have time with our own imagination, to dream.
Mm.
Um, and then how we bring that into our life, how we share that with our friends, with our loved ones. Um, I think that's something that is important, and we've forgotten a little bit as well. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do some of these things. Sometimes we will, and actually allowing it into our consciousness and our conversations is part of that. But sometimes they are just fantasies and dreams.
Yeah. I never heard of it in this context, but what it sparks in me is, I think, and even watching you as you speak about this, I sense immediate aliveness and spark, right? And so that the imagination of that can causes in you an excitement, an aliveness, spark, and that I feel like that adds to also, well, I think that can bring excitement into conversation
Mm,
with someone else, or play with someone else, right? But it also, I think, that plays into building a bigger cup in our lives, right? Like it's a bit similar to me, like what I call, for me to have more capacity in my life, I call upon joy and pleasure, and really build that into my life, like everyday glimmers and joy and pockets of pleasures, drawn from uh, little things. Yeah, I'm not
mm,
talking here self pleasure, things like that, right? Again, like, just, it's almost like making love of life.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
romancing
romancing
life.
life, nature, and that gives us a bigger cup.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
a- and connection, right? We didn't even mention, like, another way to lower stress is connecting with other people, or
Mhm,
or you know, joyful things or experience that we both enjoy. Yeah, where oxytocin keeps flowing, for example, and dopamine gets,
mm,
released. So all of that
Mm.
So I think these are the imagination that you talked about, the adding more joy and pleasure into our life, the connecting with others. We don't think of these things as often as a stress relief or as a way to um, be able to hold more in life. And there's a lot happening, right, in our world. A lot of
Mm.
terrible things are happening. How can
Mm.
we hold all that on top of all the lives we are all living,
Mm.
which we are not meant to live in such a stressful way, right? In my opinion.
Yeah, and I think engaging with these things, having a practice of feeling what's there to be felt in all that some of the different ways we've described isn't necessarily, how we grow developmentally is not kind of saying, I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but I'm never going to be able to do it. I've got 3 kids. I've got, how would I afford it? When would this happen? It's not necessarily about the binary. Can I do it? Can I not do it? Is it possible? Is it not? It's really getting curious about, well, what does that mean to me? What is it that I'm longing for
Mm.
when I dream of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro? Like, what's the sensation that comes up? Is excitement? Is it adventure? Is it doing something? Is it overcoming a challenge? Is it kind of feeling my own limitations? And so it's also getting curious about our fantasies and our desires so that we can bring more of these things into our life, which is, I guess this is what I'm describing as probably intimacy with self,
Mm.
and when we can engage within more deeper intimacy with self, we can then engage with deeper intimacy with others.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think getting curious about also our imagination and our fantasies and what that's
Mm.
potentially asking us to feel into and do more of in our daily lives.
Yeah. And the archetypal work, of course, also, right, is a similar thing when you work with different archetypes and then something in that archetype speaks to you. And I think self-intimacy, I mean, we've spoken about this a lot in our conversation, but that's kind of if learning to, like, for me to first feel what is happening here, learning to feel another, like me sensing you are coming alive, right? When you talk about that thing, that, and then of course the steps could go further. And in some of the workshops that we do, which is like, okay, so I'm sensing there's an aliveness there in Natalie. How could I bring her even more alive? How could she move, for example, right? And I invite her
Mm.
into some movement. Or what touch could she use to become even more alive? Or can you go, because it's also like in interaction with other people, right? Sometimes we are energy bringer, right? We bring energy and movement into an interaction, which then can spark or bring alive something in the other person, and then you go into
Mhm.
this dance together, right?
Mhm.
And it goes also the other way around. Sometimes someone brings a more steadiness or a calmness to a person who's maybe super alive and going all over the place, right? Like, and needs a little bit of maybe settling again. So this is also, the more we can feel ourselves and learn to feel the other person, learn to give words that learn to enliven each other.
Mm.
Um, Friendships as well as partnerships, or romantic relationships, marriages. And now I'm thinking of like marriages, like if you've been together maybe for a long time, or you're very different in your nature. One person is a bit more, is calmer, and the other one is more energetic, right? How do you play with all these things? And
Mm.
yeah, interesting explorations, right?
Yeah, and colleagues, clients,
Yes.
people that you interact with in your daily coffee shop, on the street. Like,
Mm.
I think in a way, what I feel quite excited about as I was listening to you then is that I think intimacy is about enlivening each other. It's about bringing out the aliveness of each other. And so cultivating a practice of being able to see, hear, and feel
Mm.
yourself and another enables us to enliven each other.
Yeah.
Like it really is so as simple as that. Like to notice, um, oh, you really came alive then. Your energy really,
Mm.
um, really, you really shone then when you shined. What's the right word?
Mm.
I don't know. Uh, when you said that, you know, and to have someone reflect that back to you is such a precious thing because it just brings an aliveness and an intimacy to the moment.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think this notion of intimacy is really about enlivening each other.
Mm.
Um,
And being able to be real with each other,
mm,
right? Like to be oneself, our flavor, our
mm,
nature with each other.
mm,
And yet again, right? If our cup is overflowing with stress, we are tend to be then in fight, flight, freeze. It gets
mm.
really difficult to actually feel
Yeah.
what's going on, to go from that to that. And
Mm,
so we need practices in place that help reinforce that pattern of developing that inner felt sense.
mm,
So we can feel it for ourselves, share it with each other, enliven each other, be more present with each other.
mm,
And we didn't talk about trauma, right? Another barrier to intimacy is, of course, trauma. And out of trauma, we develop coping mechanism, which help us survive, which help us do life. But then maybe in relationship, they're, you know, they are the ones who keep us getting triggered, yeah,
mm,
by,
mhm,
uh, you know, an example, like if I feel in an evening, like there's really something on my heart that I need to communicate with my husband, but he comes home and his capacity is gone, like he has no more capacity right now to be present. He first maybe needs half an hour to himself. Or maybe it's not even, maybe even not that even he will have the capacity for this particular conversation. This could deeply trigger me. It could bring up all sense of insecurities. Oh, he doesn't love me, or he's never willing to be there for me, or I feel like rejected and hurt. I feel abandoned, depending, yeah. Or it's like, oh, I can maybe sense a little bit of like, maybe a little bit of sadness that, you know, maybe there's not the space for this right now, but also
mhm,
knowing, well, it has nothing to do with me. It's just right now, it seems, it, I mean, I'm not going to force this conversation because it's simply not the right time, right? And you decide when you come back to it or you circle back to it. But that's where trauma obviously can bring in little things and then it stops. Like that then stops the connection
yeah,
in that moment, and it makes someone go into retreat and the other person maybe not understanding why they retreat, versus, okay, I still feel connected because I was able to say my thing, and maybe I go and call a friend if it's really we really need to talk this through, or I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm just gonna, it can wait for a little while. And
mm,
yeah, that's just an
yeah.
example of,
What ghosts from your past are affecting your ability
yeah,
to
yeah.
connect in the present. Yeah, it's a big one.
And when we know we have those ghosts from the past, to, yeah, to work with someone that can help us, you know, soften these
Mm,
ghosts and help these ghosts of this part relax more and more, so that you can remain connected. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can, how we say it in developmental, um, adult development kind of language is that we learn to have it and not be had by it. So we can
Okay.
see and understand that something is happening and we're feeling away, and it is potentially an old pattern, but it's not in the driving seat. We're not reacting from that place. Um,
Yeah.
so what are your top three? I'm sure we kind of say the same thing again and again and again, but maybe we that's the whole point. What are your like top three practices that help you, um, that support you in your intimate connection, your feeling of intimacy with the world?
Um, well, one is really it's dance and nonlinear movement. Sometimes just free flow dance, moving kind of the energy or the stress or the release it through very free flowing like dance, having a fun dance, or a sensual dance, or nonlinear movement with a bit more a method behind it, right? Which obviously we know and have in our, we just kind of do it. These so movement, and actually, interestingly, not like actually reaching out, like going into conversation with others, um, even when I haven't figured it out for myself yet. So not just doing my
Mm,
own thing, but other times also, going in to connection.
mm,
We've of course very selected people, right? Because this is a trust thing. Um,
mm,
but I had the situation last month, yeah, where something came up, and I just knew immediately who I need to talk about this, and I was stressed, and it just being like, yeah, that helped release stress, for example, and it was deeply intimate at the same time already. Like I just went in. Um, so connection, um, and then effortless mindfulness, a technique that I used also helps me. It's around, just self-intimacy, loving
mm,
myself, and then from there coming back to whoever, relating from there with others. But it's both
mm,
time really alone, reaching out when it's hot, and yeah, effortless mindfulness. And there's lots of other things I think that, like pockets of pleasure, right? Pockets
mm.
of pleasure. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, similarly,
Mm,
music and movement is really, really is such a big part of my life, and has multiple different functions. Like just uh, connecting with music allows me to feel.
yeah.
Moving allows me to release and express. So that might be through nonlinear movement or just dance, or free flow dance, or going to a class, or going out with friends, or um, so that's really important. Movement and music. Having a creative practice. So I love to write. I love to read poetry, and I have I've started a writing practice. I've always kind of written in different forms, but I've started a writing practice, which is, it kind of forces me uh, to to look inwards, but also express externally, and be quite vulnerable about that. Um, and then I mean, there's many, but I think, yeah, connection, friendship, like sisterhood, reaching out, connecting with really enriching my friendships, my relationships. That's um yeah, really important to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is really a sense of giving giving words to things when
Mm,
they're very when things are still fresh, when, like, there's I do really process in that. And I know that that's not the go-to for everyone, but for me, it's a way to process and yeah, to feel
I th-
to ask for that support. And I got to say that has been I was no I used to be the person who tried to deal like sort out everything for herself first.
mm,
Because it took me it was really it took time to allow myself, because it's a way of allowing myself to be supported by a friend or by someone else who is, well, first of all, listening and going into that intimate conversation with me. Yeah, and it is support in that way when you're
mm,
going through bad things. And the other thing is obviously another way, right, to stress re- dealing with our lives is just having right fun times with our
mm,
friends too.
mm.
Yeah, yeah,
I
connection,
Yeah, fun, having fun. Oh my
having fun.
goodness, like how we forget that as adults,
Laugh,
like
right?
having fun and laughing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just as you were saying that, I think the key thing there is the practicing speaking from the heart. It's because when we speak to somebody once we've got it all figured out, or we've kind of done a process in our heads, which a lot of people do, we're speaking more from the mind than from the heart.
Mhm.
And
I
speaking from the heart is vulnerable. And
mhm.
because we don't know, the mind is not rehearsing or not planning anything. And so, um, finding places in which we can speak from the heart is such an important practice for everybody. And I think not everybody is aware that they don't have that, or is doing it, especially if you're a bit more introverted.
Yeah.
If you're a bit more extroverted, it comes a little bit more naturally to just kind of speak out loud or think out loud. But for those that are a bit more introverted, it doesn't come as naturally. So it is really important that we find these spaces and people and places that we can practice speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
Because then
I
it also allows us to speak in professional um, circumstances off the cuff and from the heart and authentically. So it's about creating intimacy and connection, not just from a personal relationship and emotional health perspective, but also to be able to influence and connect with others in a professional setting as well.
Yeah, and sometimes we need, right, again, for a lot of us, this is a practice first before it comes second nature. And
Mm,
that's what, when we used to be in the women's temple, that's what we used to practice. Okay, just share from the heart what's bubbling up, what's here, and just training the muscle. Yeah.
mm,
And what I have heard quite often when I do these days open up in when things are still quite raw or raw, it's actually a gift often to the other person. I don't
yeah.
see it as that, of course, because for me it's a gift to someone else's there. But it reminds other people that they could also reach out when they need, right?
Mm,
Because we don't reach out enough in our
yeah.
hyper individualized cultures. And if even like a lot of the self-help, well-being, wellness industry, the last 20 years, it's been so much often about the individual journey, like the inwards and we with ourself and all of that. It's important, right? And we use those things, but the going into relationship and relating is as important. It's the other
Mm.
side of the coin. Yeah.
It's yeah, it's just expressing and reminding each other of our humanity.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going through this, and then when someone shares that, we learn that oh, they feel that too, or so it really is connecting and sharing our humanity with each other.
Yeah, and that's what differentiates us from artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
Anything
you.
you want to add, Nat?
No, I feel complete. I feel connected and complete and curious. I'm curious about what this might bring up for those of you listening.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye. Until next time.